come back to you at the end.
We're still at the top headlines. There it goes.
There we go. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Hsd School Board meeting for Tuesday, May 28th, 2019. Melissa, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Jason Giard.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
James Sweeney.
Here.
Karen Yasenka.
Here.
And also seated at the board table is Assistant Superintendent Dr. Roxanne Wilson. And we also have our district administrators present.
Thank you. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have in your packets meeting minutes from our May 14th regular meeting, as well as for our May 14th non-public meeting minutes. And take a minute to review, and then if I could have a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the May 14th minutes, both the regular meeting and the non-public meeting.
Second. Beat me to
I
it.
did that. Any discussion or questions or comments? All in favor?
Thank you.
Melissa, do we have any public comments? Okay, we have a very exciting item first on our agenda here. This is for Hsd Middle School being presented with the Spotlight School Award by the New England League of Middle Schools. We have Donna Boardman from the Board of Directors to present to Mrs. Denola. Thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and recognize such a wonderful school and community. I have to tell you that when NELM sends teams out to visit schools, they always come back with a report, and one of our people who came out said, "You were one of the best she had ever seen." Oh. Yeah, and they don't use that lightly. NELMS, the New England League of Middle Schools, seeks to recognize educators, students, and partners that demonstrate excellence in middle-level education. We have only 28 Spotlight schools in all of New England. 8 of them are in New Hampshire. The Spotlight School Award the purpose is to recognize schools that have a record of effective teaching and learning for young adolescents, and a consistency in implementing middle-level best practices. A NELM Spotlight School is recognized for developing strong, effective programs that reflect concepts contained in Turning Points 2000, and this we believe. And you have done that in a beautiful way. I tried to think of the best way to say that to you, and I think the best way to do it is to just read the commendations that this school earned from our team that came out. Hsd is a warm and inviting school community that truly supports and champions middle-level education. From their district SAU staff to their administrative team, leadership team, teachers and support staff, everyone at Hsd is clearly committed to students and creating a culture strong in academics but stronger in community and civic pride. There is clearly a high level of dedication and support that is felt not only by students, but by staff and parents alike. Everyone consistently shared that Hsd is their home, and the people here are a family. The community supports the school not only with financial budget resources, but also a commitment to supporting all students and doing what is best for the kids. The amount of support in this building exceeds what we normally see, and are truly evidence to the commitment that they have to meeting students' needs and creating a safe and supportive environment, pushing 21st century best practices into curriculum and their classrooms. Keep up the exemplary work at Hsdsb Middle School, and you are truly one of New England League of Middle School Spotlight Schools. Thank you.
Mrs. Denola, could you just answer a couple of questions? Being a Spotlight school, what does that mean for us? What are some of the things you have to do as a Spotlight school?
We have to have a very clear mission of supporting middle-level learners, and that's by supporting them in an advisory program, having a one-to-one connection with children, that every child feels like there's someone in their school that they can connect with, as well as having high rigorous expectations in the academic realm, but also having the kids having community service, understanding that they're here to serve not only themselves, but their community. We went to the Scholar Leader Dinner on Thursday night in Manchester, and there was at least 50 schools there from New Hampshire, and only 3 of them were highlighted as a Spotlight school. So it's a lot of work to get it to that point, but you know, we've got a lot to celebrate, and we have great support from our school board, administration, our community members, and for what we take for granted is so not the norm out there. And even, you know, our athletes were on the road last week, and they stopped at a McDonald's, and the people were just going up to the coaches saying, your kids are so polite. They're saying thank you. They're picking up their trash. They're letting people go in front of them. It's, you know, the same thing when we went to the Supreme Court and Superior Court to do the mock trials. The docents were, wow, your kids are so well behaved. Or at the Memorial Day Assembly on Thursday, 45 minutes of a lengthy speech about the Cold War, and our kids were, there wasn't a pin, you know, they're just so respectful, and they're very appreciative of the support. So we're very blessed.
Great. And so now as a Spotlight school, you get the opportunity to have visitors come to learn more about what you do.
Correct. We've
Plus,
already,
Your obligation, I believe, is to do a workshop at the NELMS
at the conference in
presentation.
Rhode Island in a year, and to highlight the best practices that gets us there. We've already had people reach out to us from around the state to send teams and see how we do what we do within the 6 3/4 hours that we have in a day. So we welcome people to come with open arms to share what we're doing. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. I know this is a team effort, and I just really need to point out both the staff at the middle school, as a parent and from getting now to see kind of the behind-the-scenes middle school world, as a school board member, Mrs. Denola and Mrs. Joseph, you are incredible leaders, and you need to take a lot of credit for this, as well as all of the staff at middle school, because middle school is hard. You all know that better than us, but for those of us who have kids who have gone through or will go through, just as hard as it is to leave Central School, I feel so comfortable sending my children there and sending friends and families' children up to middle school, because I know that they're going to be well taken care of and they're going to feel accepted, and I think that helps their growth so much, both on an academic level and as a personal level. So thank you from all of us.
I'll share that with myself.
Please do. Next we have the FLES presentation. Mr. Collins and Beth Metzler are going to be doing that for us.
As you know, we've been wanting to have foreign language in our schools for many, many years, and very fortunate that this year we finally have it coming in here. We also have the good fortune of having Beth Metzler here available to work with us as our consultant. She's got an enormous background, which we've already been working for a few months on getting this thing to happen. So this evening is just going to give you an update on what we've done thus far and some looking ahead of what we're expecting to see happen with our kindergartners also. It's my pleasure to introduce Beth Metzler.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. So, hola.
So basically, welcome, and I'm very excited to be here implementing this in Hampstead, a town that's near and dear to me and a program that's near and dear to me. And to give a little more in-depth background about myself, I've been in education for over 23 years as a classroom teacher, an education consultant, a curriculum writer, a program designer, and implementer. I also work throughout the Northeast training teachers to use computer software programs to help improve Lexile score levels in English and Spanish. So I've done a lot of work with this, and I work a lot with improving not only students' language, but their reading levels as well. So what I want to do is I would like to give you an update on the timeline as far as where we are and where we are going for the current, or the board members that were here before. But I also want to give you a little bit of a background or a brief overview for the new school board members about what FLES is. FLES is foreign language in elementary school, and it's typically implemented in grades K to 6 and oftentimes preschool as well. 5 to 15% of the school day is devoted to the second language, which would be 30 to 45 minutes per class, and it's generally scheduled 3 to 5 days a week. FLES goals, or program goals, would be to acquire functional proficiency in listening and speaking. We do work with reading and writing as they get older, but we are focusing on listening and speaking proficiencies in the second language. Also, obviously, to increase global and cultural awareness. Some of the FLES methodology, when we learned a language, way back when I learned a language, the teacher was the center of the classroom in a language classroom, pointing to objects or putting up flashcards for students to escuchen y repitan, to listen and repeat. It's a lot different now. What we do is the students are the center of the FLES classroom, where words and expressions are taught in context and not in isolation. There's a lot of TPR. There's a lot of continual positive reinforcement. There's very low stress correction of student error. That's done by modeling from other students, modeling from the teacher. And we do a lot of meaningful 21st century communication through situational activities, poems, songs. We'll have a puppet. You'll see a frog throughout my presentation, and that's because in preschool through first grade, we have a frog puppet. Why it's named Rosita all the time, I don't know. They have the opportunity to name the frog. But definitely in-class recognition of birthdays, things that are important to the students in their everyday lives. So some of our goals will be to provide them with, obviously, the language learning opportunities and knowledge and skills that they'll need in the 21st century. We want to support their other disciplines. The FLES curriculum will be aligned with what they are seeing in the kindergarten classroom. Now, being that we will only see the FLES students 3 times a week for 30 minutes, they won't have the entire curriculum, but they will have the main components of what they are seeing in their classroom, which would be colors, shapes, numbers. We want to positively promote global awareness, enhance their reading development in both languages, English and Spanish, improve their understanding of their own language, give them the skills to develop the 3 modes of communication, which would be interpersonal, presentational, and interpretive. And basically, by the end of this program, we want to develop functional proficiency in Spanish at the beginning stages of language acquisition. So some frequently asked questions. This is one of the most frequently asked questions. How much Spanish is spoken in class? Well, for it to be an actual FLES class, according to ACFL, which is the American Council of Teaching a Foreign Language, the FLES program needs to be 90% of the time in the target language. Now, obviously, unless safety concerns require the teacher to speak English, fire drill, or something important that they really need to communicate, it would be in English. Starting in the kindergarten classrooms, this fall, they will not be at the 90% probably until mid-November, and then they will be 90%. Why can't we all have FLES? This is the most asked question. Everybody's excited about this program. Everybody's excited that it's being implemented in the elementary school and that they're having the opportunity to learn a second language. The most successful FLES programs take 1 year at a time to unfold, and that's because it is aligned. So the kindergarten kids are seeing kindergarten concepts in Spanish, and they're seeing their kindergarten concepts in English. If we implemented this all at once, you would have kindergarten concepts in K to 5, and you'd be constantly chasing your tail, rewriting curriculum, as well as the time that it takes to develop this program. We need to evaluate and monitor every year. Hiring of teachers, materials, scheduling, trying to schedule that all at once would be extremely difficult. So we need a transition period, obviously budgeting for it as well. Informing the community about FLES. So far, in your packets, you have the kindergarten brochures that I created and went out on open house, the kindergarten open house night. These are also in the Hampstead Central School. There will be FLES links on the school web pages. I will be working with the technology director this summer to create FLES links on the school web pages. The FLES teacher will be working with me, and they will be sending home monthly newsletters to parents. We will have useful websites for parents to reference and research as to why language acquisition is important and the benefits of learning a second language, as well as useful apps for them to go home and do a flipped classroom, if you will, and taking some initiative of their learning on their own. And we're working on implementing an end-of-the-year celebration for these students so that they can show what they know. So the FLES program timeline, you also have in your packets the timeline, where we are. And again, the FLES brochure is done, and that went home at kindergarten open house night. We've had our first FLES committee meeting, and that was March 20th. I did an overview for the Hampstead Central staff on March 26th. The FLES job description has been created, posted, and interviews are in progress, and I believe still are. Visitations to the Timberlane FLES program happened. We went to Danville on April 1st with Katie Vitale and Maggie Daly, which was wonderful. They were able to not only ask me questions while the program was in motion and in action, but were able to ask the classroom teacher and that FLES teacher as well. And then on April 11th, Julie Pekowski and Kristen Karamatopoulos visited Atkinson Academy with me, as well as Dillard. Dillard was able to have the opportunity to sit down with Kathy Deotis and sort of get a higher level view of the program and scheduling and some things, questions that he had as well as a principal. Recommendations for FLES materials, I have given those to Dillard, and those will be ordered when appropriate. And right now, I'm currently aligning and developing the kindergarten FLES curriculum. I've worked with Julie and Katie, and I created a scope and sequence, and they went through the scope and sequence with me. They showed me what aligned and what didn't align, and we're continuing with that now. Where are we going? We're developing the kindergarten FLES progress indicator competencies this summer. I'll be meeting with a FLES teacher the FLES teacher that is hired to do a mentoring session to review the curriculum, materials, and program goals. I'll hopefully meet with the art, music, and FLES teacher to regard the integration of FLES with art and music, and coordinating with the district technology director for posting the FLES brochure and the program overview and the website that I spoke about. September 2019 to June 2020, we will have 3 FLES committee meetings, and those will be between October 2019 to May 2020. I'll have monthly mentoring sessions with the FLES teacher, and I have sent out a tentative schedule, hopefully the first Wednesday of every month. I'll provide quarterly executive summaries for the school board. I will provide kindergarten teachers and unified arts teachers, as well as the classroom teachers, with common phrases and expressions. I already have done that for them. It's basic phrases and expressions that they can keep on their desk with correct pronunciation. So getting them involved in the program, getting everybody speaking a little bit of Spanish, getting the teachers excited. We all know the kids will get excited. And then we start the process again. We'll get approval to proceed and to begin to first grade in March 2020. We'll assess the first year of FLES implementation. And then we'll present a review to you in the spring of 2020 of how our year went, our first year of implementation. Preguntas.
Questions? Anybody? No, I'm very excited about this, and it seems like everyone's being well prepared. So it'll be great to see how this progresses and where we are by next year. So thank you very much. I don't know if anybody has. I guess that's it.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'm very excited about this. But I also remember when I was in high school, I didn't take Spanish until I was a freshman in high school. So I know you were talking about kids learning basic concepts in kindergarten, and then you would have other kids learning the same basic concepts in other grades. But I mean, that's how it works. I'm just wondering if more kids, maybe not official FLES, but if, you know, learning what we learn after the first year, can some of the other teachers and adopt start using some of the basic terms in their classes? Or is that not part of it? You know what I mean? To just get them a little more ready, you know? Like I said, I mean, I learned the colors and shapes as a freshman in high school back then. So I'm just wondering, you know, maybe it's not less for all grades, but is it possible that kids could be more prepared for their first real class?
I mean, that's something that the students will pick up as they're in the culture of the school. The teachers will have the common phrases and expressions that they will be using with the classroom teachers, as well as the FLES teacher. The kids will be hearing it. The kids will be seeing it. They will be picking up some Spanish, the other kids as well, with the program just functioning in the school. But typically, for it to be successful, it needs to be aligned and unroll 1 year at a time.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just like to thank you and all the administrators and teachers who have worked hard on this to bring this forward. Dillard said before that it's been a long time coming. I don't know if you realize how long coming. When I moved here 37 years ago, as a new person in town, foolish me went to a district meeting. I was there, by the way. You were there. And Bob Crompton was the superintendent, and little did I know, because I'd come from an area that we had always had Spanish. So I stood up and said, explain to me why we don't have Spanish here? And I mean, the looks were just very strange, like I was speaking a different language at that time. So I've been waiting 37 years for this. So I'm very glad that everyone's on board with it, and looking forward to being very successful. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Oh, now we have Mr. Collins again. We have the homework practices update. I believe in Mrs. Denola, too. Sorry. Both.
Nice job, Beth. 10 minutes, awesome.
Thank you.
Actually, it was 9.5. Dr. Wilson should be very happy with you. What do I do?
I know the feeling.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm back.
Hi.
Yes, Karen, I do remember that meeting, and then we also had it in a strategic plan. And that's one of the reasons we have foreign language at our middle school. So it's fine, I'm thrilled that we do have it as well. Mrs. Denola and I are here with some of our colleagues this evening to give you sort of an update on what's been going on with homework. So we've spent the year talking about homework. The school board's been involved with the conversation quite a bit longer, asking us some change pieces that have happened. So this evening, we're just going to give you an update at where we are. We don't have all the answers yet, but we certainly have spent the year talking, and we've done some surveys to get to this stage. But I want to introduce our colleagues that'll be here. We have Kara Gordon. She's a second grade teacher to help us out with one slide. And we have Marianne Boucher to give a simple example of something that's going on with homework as well. And we also have Ashley Corder, who is a fifth grade teacher. So we've got three of our wonderful teachers. As you know, we have many wonderful teachers. They're here to speak on behalf of a lot of great things that are happening in our schools. So if I hit the right button, I think I killed it, Cliff. Yes, I did. Try this button.
Stop the buttons.
Technology scares me.
Mrs. Metzler
You
didn't
can't
have a
leave.
problem using it.
Thank you. Which button do I push?
The right.
Thank you, sir. Okay,
Say the right one.
okay, you're right. You. Okay, just to start it off, the policy and procedures, some of you guys were sitting at the board here, some of you were not, but the policy and procedures were actually completed during the summer of 2018, because we had gone through a lot of dialogue the whole year prior to this. So we made a conscious decision last fall that we would open the school year with no homework throughout the month of September, get our feet under ourselves, make sure everybody understood what we were expecting as far as homework, And on October the 1st, we began the new practice. And a real quick summary statement is that in K through 2, there's no homework assigned. There are recommendations for extended learning. Grades 3 through 5, we put some limits on what would be homework, and we did go with a time frame of not to exceed 30 minutes. And then in 6 through 8, we went with more of the traditional 60, 70, or 80 minutes of homework expected, 60 minutes at grade 6, 70 at grade 7, and then moving forward. Okay, I think you're, where are you? There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. As requested by the school board, we had 3 groups were surveyed separately this past fall and again this spring, namely the students in grades 3 through 8, parents and staff members who were involved with developing the homework. In the spring parent survey, the breakdown of all 3 surveys revealed a nice amount of responses from the grade levels that were affected by the changes in the new homework expectations. 298 parents in the district were kind enough to complete the survey to share their thoughts with us. 121 parents in grades K through 2, 107 parents in grades 3 through 5, and 74 in grades 6, 7, and 8.
Those are really good at math. This doesn't add up because some parents have a kid in multiple grade
Right.
levels, just so you know.
In the next slide, students and staff surveys received. More than 95% of our students filled out the survey and shared constructive feedback and comments, which made the data review poignant regarding their academic and their social aspects of the new policy. More than 90% of the staff communicated their thoughts about the changes and offered recommendations for the future.
So when we started reading through all the surveys from our teachers and students, we said, well, okay, what do the teachers say and what do the students say actually happened? So the teachers in 3rd and 4th grade were generally saying they would assign about 21 to 25 minutes of work to be done on a given night, and then the students said, I was spending about 30 minutes. In 5th grade, you can see that the teachers said they thought they sent about 30 minutes of work, and it ended up being about 32. And then 6th, 7th, and 8th, you can see how that flows as we go down through the subsequent grade levels. The walk away from this is the policy was to not exceed those. So we're pretty close. Grade 5, you know, what the students are saying is there. But we just looked, we got lots of numbers, and we were trying to find something, sort of a mean number, just so you had an idea what the kind of work the kids were actually spending at home at night.
So our next question was, how has the pace of the curricula been impacted by the changes in the homework policy? This is the teacher survey results. As you can see indicated in the teacher survey, 60% of our teachers reported that the pace of delivering instruction in the classroom has been impacted. Our progress of the implementation of the new policy has impacted primarily math proficiency and reading due to the fact that students are devoting less time to practicing skills. Teachers across the grade levels reported that homework completion has declined this year. The limited amount of time given for practice has impacted the pacing of instruction delivery during class time. And what does this mean from the perspective of a teacher? And Ashley, our 5th grade teacher, would like to just give you a snapshot of what that looks like.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. In the 5th grade, 20 minutes of the 30 minutes expected for homework is to be spent on reading. This allows for 10 additional minutes for the practicing of skills in the other content areas. In the area of math, it is essential to practice the new concepts learned in class to keep the momentum going for the next day's lesson. Therefore, the team has determined the remaining time of 10 minutes be spent on math practice.
As we read through all the open-ended questions that were being asked, 47% of our teachers reported there really was no major impact with this change process that occurred with the policy in practice. But 53% of them, a little bit more than half of them, reported some concerns about the practice of skills, students' accountability and work habit comments, and the pace of instruction as was cited in the previous slide. Those are three pieces that we kind of focused when we dug a little bit deeper to try to figure out, what would happen next. In this one, we're going to ask a couple of our teachers to come up to sort of give you a couple of examples of the meaningful and purposeful, which was the statement in that we wanted to make sure that homework is there. Now, 92% of our students reported that it's directly related to what they're learning in the classroom. So we're going to talk to you some examples. So Mrs. Boucher and Mrs. Corder are just going to give us a quick snapshot of what would come from a middle school or an elementary classroom.
Hi again. So in the upper grades, more 7th and 8th grade, maybe an example of a meaningful assignment would be to research a topic to prepare for the next day's lesson. And in the lower grades, more 5th and 6th grade, homework is more repetition and practice for what was covered that day in class.
In 4th grade, at the elementary level, specifically, children are reading, we feel, is like just paramount, important for children to do on a regular basis. So they may, one, their reading is whatever level they're at, they have choice. And most teachers are having them read things that they have been supported in picking good fit books and reading material that helps them read independently, but also improve their reading skills. And they may be preparing for a lit circle that they have to bring something to a book talk the next day, but it's directly related to either something a teacher will follow up on with their reading. It's not just, oh, you read and we don't keep track of that. They have to, teachers know exactly what they're reading, and then they're also responding back to them, whether it's something they have to do with a group of children back in class, or there's something they have to respond to or write about later when they're back in class later that week. So that would be one example of what we would do that would be meaningful for students and directly related to our instructional practices.
Next comes the student survey with regard to challenge. Were your homework assignments this year too easy, just right, or too hard? This kind of gave us the Goldilocks results. 3/4 of our students reported that our homework was just right. A small portion said it was too hard, and another small portion said it was too easy. These are areas that we will continue to adjust and work with our teachers to meet the individual needs of all of our students. And the next is a student survey on feedback. Is the feedback that you're receiving from your teacher timely, and is it giving you good constructive feedback? So teachers were to convey feedback to students in a timely manner, but also to give feedback in different ways. We are moving forward to improve this number a bit because the feedback that we may think a fifth grader finds useful may not be exactly what they need. As their needs change and our technology changes and our communication pieces change, we also have to keep our eye on this one. For example, what method is most helpful for some students? Some students like the old written remark on their homework. In a script, some kids using PowerSchool, the teachers put comments in PowerSchool and they look there, or the parents look there. So we would like to talk to kids to find out a more detailed approach on what is more meaningful to them on the type of feedback they receive on their homework.
The next one, I want to apologize. There was a typo that we somehow got through our editing process, so I was the one that sent the final draft, so you can blame it on me. But just to clarify, 33% of our students, when they were asked, what's the impact on your daily life? Roughly a third of the kids, 33% said, not a big deal, it didn't change my world. 32% of the kids, they gave us comments and additional pieces that suggested this pulled off some pressure so they could have more time for the rest of the stuff that happened during their day. There were 37% of the kids that just simply said, this is still a negative impact at home. So this is basically the thirds that gave us a variety of opinions of how this impacts them outside of the school day. So I'm going to bring up Mrs. Gordon here just to give you an example of what this slide is speaking to. We're talking about in the youngest grade levels when we don't give homework, yet we do give parents an idea how to extend the learning of the day.
So as you know, in our K through 2 classrooms, we do not assign homework, but we do give opportunities for extended learning, and we make it very child-specific. So if a child needs some extra work on a reading concept, we'll supply some books and some materials for the parents to work with the kids. We'll give them opportunities to extend where they need extensions. It's very child-specific, so everybody's not getting the same thing.
So we asked the students about just, what do you think of our new homework policy and practice? 42% of them said it's okay. 19% of them said we need to do some improvement. Now, these were narrative comments that we brought down. So some of the kids had some very specific ideas of how we can improve. One of them is communication. Another one is make it harder. Some of them said make it easier. So they were all over the place. But it gave us some fuel when we continue the conversation with teachers about the homework practice. There were 21% of them that said they definitely wanted less homework. 11% did say they want more homework. And there were 7% that were very straightforward. I don't like homework, period, end of discussion, which I'm sure if you sit around dinner table with a family or with some friends on the weekend, yeah, you're going to get probably all over the place as well. So just to sort of bring us to some sort of conclusion, we want to continue to support the new practices reflecting in this homework policy and procedure. We're comfortable where we've been going. We feel like we're going down the correct path. The one concern that we need to continue our conversation is the practice of skills, specifically in ELA and math. And you heard our teachers talking about how we can help the kids practice anything from the reading concepts they're working on when they're younger, or how that impacts their learning as the students get a little bit older. The other one is math facts. And this is a conversation that says, are we getting the right blend of what should be done at school within the school day, as well as what could happen at home? We want to improve the communication of homework expectations in grades 3 through 5. I think right now what we said when we disaggregated the data and looked at the various grade levels, that was the target area where we feel like the communication needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I'll give you a specific example. If you want to talk about children will walk into a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade classroom and say, I chose to not do my homework. That's not what the policy is. There's a parental communication. We only had 3 parents that actually reported that they've reached out to ask that your children not participate in homework, which we understand. That's part of the policy. We understand the spirit of that. So we need to clean up that communication, which means maybe we need to communicate that better with some parents that maybe telling the children you don't need to, but there is a step we want to make sure we're following. And I think another one is occasionally children will tell us something that really wasn't the whole conversation at home. So we just want to make sure we clean up all those little pieces. And another one is we did intentionally pull off the report card the little work habit piece that says homework completion. We pulled it off as we were going through a new policy because we didn't want to confuse the matter. The policy states that homework will not be counted towards an academic grade. We're not asking for that at all, but we just want to know if the child is meeting the expectations of homework. I think parents would want to know that if the teacher expects them to do such and such, that they've met the expectation, and there will also be, they've met the expectation if there's been communication about that parent opt-out, but we want to make sure that that is really clean and right up front with everyone. Okay, are there any questions?
I can start. I'm going to bring teachers into this too. How difficult was this to kind of get to the point we are now? Because I will tell you, I'm kind of viewing this year as a learning year. We know the policy we weren't totally ready. We weren't, for start of school, there was that finalization process and everything else. So I'm looking at it as a learning year. So, I mean, just real quick, I don't need anything like super long, but for on the teacher level, how did you feel making that change was.
You'll need to come over here if you're going to
Sorry.
speak.
Yeah.
In K to 2, it just solidified, we're just doing more child-specific. We still give options for parents if they would like to work with the spelling concept. We communicate with the parents to say, these are the concepts we're working on. These are some things you could do if you so choose to do. But if somebody really needs something, we're really communicating that. As a parent of middle school children, that first month, not having homework was a true blessing, being able to slide into the routines of school, maybe not a full month, but a few weeks of being able to get back into the routines as a mom, it was really nice, I have to admit. So.
Okay, so quick follow-up, sorry. I'm sorry, I want to hear from both of you too. Do you feel like you've had more contact with parents than on this specific kind of?
I think that's hard for me to judge because I communicate with my parents all the time, so it's not more than, and all, in elementary school, we're always communicating with our parents, so I think that's kind of one of those pieces.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like I can speak at the 3rd and 4th grade level. I've been hanging out there for a long time, 3rd and 4th grade. But it's more consistent. The teachers talk more about what is coming out of the classrooms for homework. That's what I've found has happened this year a little more. There's more of those discussions as opposed to, we have a lot of new teachers I've seen come in on teams, and sometimes it's like they come in with an idea about homework and nobody really discussed it before. It was kind of like, oh, this is what I do, or this is what I do, and if they choose to do something. I find it's been more of a consistent discussion, which is nice. And also we're really that individualizing. What are you doing? You might ask someone, what are you doing about how is it going with math facts in your class? Do you find you have to do more, or spelling? We have that word work now at the 4th grade level a lot more, and it's like how much spelling are you giving, or are you doing more in the classroom? So I think the teachers are communicating more about it because of that.
Thank you.
And I can speak to the 5th grade where it was a learning year for us as well. I think we had a bigger change than at the central school. I think the number one thing that was different for us is holding the children accountable. There has been a lot more communication with parents. We have communicated just as much, but now the conversation has changed. It's a little bit more about keeping them accountable and the homework. And as I mentioned earlier, the pace of the instruction has slowed for at least my grade in particular, the 5th grade, with the new homework policy being implemented.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question?
So in K to 2, there's no homework. 3, 4, and 5, limited homework. What do you think the spread is there between those 3 grades, the type of homework that's being given? Are some classes in general maybe not giving any at all? So could you have a teacher in 3rd grade that doesn't give much homework, not even limited, in 4th grade and 5th grade, and then you get to 6th grade and you get slammed because it's not defined? Do you know what I'm saying?
The goal of the 3rd, I know for 3rd and 4th, the goal is, there's actually been more talk about not having enough time, not that I'm saying they want to pile on more homework to kids, but it's a real conversation that if you're doing word work and spelling and math skills you want them to practice and reading, you can't do that in 30 minutes a night, 4 nights a week, effectively. So what we've done is we've adjusted to how much, and I'm going to allude to what Ms. Cordes said about slowing the pace of instruction. We have talked about the fact that the pace of instruction has slowed a little bit in ELA because in 4th grade particularly we have a lot of word work curriculum, and to send children home, if we did really some good practice with that, we'd have to sacrifice something like math. So in order to do that, so I don't see that happening based on what we want for children and how we want to keep them academically ready. I don't see that happening.
So do you think the 3rd, you can talk the 3rd and 4th probably.
Yeah.
Do you think the 3rd grade teachers are giving this similar amount in the 4th and the 5th?
I think they're trying to be careful not to go over the limit. That's what we're trying to do. There's not a worry about trying to get them to 30 minutes. It's whether you're giving them too much. You're trying to pace it so you can say, well, they should be able to do this particular assignment in 10:15 and then this one in 10:15. We're trying to make sure we're not slamming them or anything. Okay?
So in the middle school, we're obviously different because we teach individual subjects. So as I mentioned earlier, with the 30 minutes, 20 is devoted to reading, and usually the 10 is for math, because the research shows that the reading and math skills need to be practiced every night. I teach science, and so for example, if I'm doing a science lab or an experiment in my class, they would usually have to finish the analysis and the conclusion for homework. However, with the 30-minute allotment for homework, I am now having to have an additional day for them to complete that part of the assignment. Therefore, it's now taking twice as long to complete that part. So then they go to 6th grade, and the time allotment does increase to the 60 minutes. So they are getting more. I wouldn't necessarily say slammed with a lot more work, but it is a big increase in what they get from 5th grade.
I'd like to just go back a year, how this started. This originally started because we were going to take a look at homework in general. And is homework the cause of anything? What are the positive impacts of homework? And so a committee was formed, and if you all remember, the committee presented to us, and they felt that, in general, homework was beneficial for students. The committee cited things like, well, it teaches time management. It teaches responsibility. It teaches good work habits. And there were some of us on the board at that time, and I'm still one of them, but quite frankly, I don't believe that homework is beneficial to students in grades K through 6. And so this past year was done as basically, from my view, as a compromise. We're going to cut it down somewhat, but we're not going to completely eliminate it. And as you said, Mr. Collins, before, you said with the surveys, parent surveys, kids surveys, teacher surveys, you said, quote, it will be all over the place. And I agree 100% with that it will be all over the place. That's why I, for one, and some of the board members feel these are more like opinion polls, and that I believe that decisions should be made for the best interests of all our students. I, for one, am making mine on the over 280 studies that have been conducted, and I can show you all of them, that show you that homework is not beneficial for children in grades K through 6, starting all the way back with Harris Cooper and going up to Alfie Kohn, and schools in the country that have already started not doing this, and they're seeing beneficial impacts in learning, in family life, in growth and development for children. And it's not just academics. The people who have chimed in on this are child psychologists, neurologists, who take into account the development of the child at certain age levels and their cognitive skills and their learning abilities. And so, anyway, that's where I'm coming from. I'm still at the point, I don't see the benefits. And unless someone can stand up here tonight and convince me, again, that homework teaches responsibility or time management, or that performance is actually improved because of homework, I'd like you to do that, because the child who does well in school on a test is probably doing well anyway, not because they did the homework the night before. The homework is not a cause for things that are happening. And in most cases, it's not even a correlation. I mean, I think we're stuck in a situation, we've always done homework, everybody's always done homework, everyone's done it for 10 minutes, everybody's done it for 12 minutes, and I get it, that it's something hard to change for everybody to want to change what we've done. You've done it, your parents did it, I did it, we all did it. But I'm of the belief, I can't look at all this research that's coming out from educators, child psychologists, neurologists, and just turn a blind eye and say, I'm going to forget that. We're still going to go down the same path that we've been on for years. So I just want you to know that's where I'm coming from. So I'm not, I appreciate the work you've done, but I'm not supportive of homework. So I can't sit here and say, gee, good job. So anyway, anybody else?
Did you, yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to that because the research, the whole reason Head Start started in communities back in the day was because children weren't being read to at home. And the thing is, they wanted to give them an advantage so they had to start a program so that young children could get read to every day, because research does show if children do not read every day, they do not perform as well in school. There's plenty of research for that. So I'm just saying, your research is, it definitely, the research you've read, I've read most of it, and I tend to be more towards on the spectrum, towards your spectrum, because I've read all that research. However, and that's why I feel like we had to adjust what we were doing, and it wasn't about rigor at home. But I will say, if you heard what we really were saying today, it was ELA. It wasn't about work habits, and it wasn't about all that. There are some teachers that will tell that that's a really important thing, but we have specifically looked at this in a very fair way to see if children are benefiting academically in the classroom, and the children who do not, and my 30 years of experience, and I can name them, who don't go home at night and read on a regular basis or choose not to read ever at home, they struggle in school. They do not get what they need if they don't have a regular habit of reading and you just do it in school every day. And like I said, I have names swimming around in my head that I've seen that happen. And the other thing I just wanted to address, I agree with you with a lot of things, but I thought we were from a district that individualizes things, and to say carte blanche that no child K through 6 needs homework or shouldn't have homework, then we're not individually meeting the needs of our students. Some children do. And that's all I want.
As far as the reading goes, I agree with you 100%, and all the researchers have said, homework doesn't have to be assigned, but reading should be encouraged at all levels. And it should be reading almost personal levels, because if you make a child read and log in how much time they've spent and then write about it and everything, they're apt to lose interest in that. So it's reading for their own sake. I don't disagree with that at all. And that's not me, who am I? The researchers don't disagree with that at all. They say reading is very important, but that's very different than homework.
Can I just jump in?
And the Head Start program,
Yes.
yeah, I understand why that was started too, because some of those children weren't getting what they needed at home. Well, you can carry that out for today too. There are still some students, you can send homework home, but if their parents aren't engaging them, they're not getting it done at home anyway. So the child who didn't understand it in school now is being sent home, and he has no one at home to help him with it either, so his frustration just grows, and homework becomes very stressful. If there's no one at home to help you with homework, what's the point of giving homework? And that's where I think the differentiation comes between homework and extra help. No one's saying children shouldn't have extra help. Kids who need extra help in certain areas should certainly get extra help. That can be a conversation with the teacher and the parent that says, Johnny needs help in X, so every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to provide something special, personalized for him. But that's extra help. That's not homework. An entire district doesn't have to have a homework policy because Johnny and Susie and Betty may have special needs at certain times. That's an extra help component, I think.
I actually agree with you in many of what you're saying, Karen, and if you read through the surveys, which I've read through thousands of these comments, it's abundantly clear that a lot of our teachers are close to what your thinking is, just like Mary Ann shared. One thing that has been good about this is what the teacher said. There's been a lot of active dialogue, going back to that initial question, why are we sending it home? And it was interesting to see how it came back to the practice that needs to be happening, and should that happen at home, or should that happen within the classroom or within the school setting somewhere else? So that's what has been, to me, the biggest gain this year. I don't think we're there yet, that we can simply say that K through 6, we should not be doing homework, nor do I think that that's in the best interest of all children. But I think we need to have another year working with the teachers, not change the policy, just continue to improve the practice, because that's one of the things that I say our outstanding teachers have done so well this year. They have taken that chance to sit back and have that open professional dialogue. And they have looked at that research. Mary Ann Boucher is here for a reason, because I've been hearing this preaching from her for the last 20 years, working with her about the value of really good quality homework. And it's not just her, but there's many others. So I'm very supportive of what the teachers are saying, that we need to focus on this. And I do think there's enough parents that say they do need something for children to do at home as far as homework. We just have to figure out where that clean line is. And a policy is to guide us. Practicing, teachers practice need to find what's right for each child.
Yep, Dr. Winston.
Well, I think from a different perspective, right? So I'm really not, I didn't really want to address the board to debate the value of homework, but I did want to take this opportunity. First, Hempstead's very fortunate, because it really doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Hempstead leads the learning in New Hampshire and around it. They do a great job, and so we're very, very fortunate. So I think my takeaways from the work here, I think as I listen to the conversation, first of all, I commend the work. I think I'm in a position where I could say I know the kind of work that the people in the trenches put in for the spirit of your policy and the spirit of doing a deep dive here and really get a good idea about, what does Hampstead really want out of, what do we call it, homework, extended learning opportunities. I think they've done a really nice job personalizing learning for students. As I listened to Mr. Sweeney talk earlier, it dawned on me, we're not robots, so, we have more than one teacher per grade level, and if you have children that have different teachers, you'd like to believe that it's consistent, so it doesn't matter really what teacher you get, like one teacher, no homework, other teacher, tons of homework. I think this has helped with our consistency, and I also think, as we go through the grades, I think we're trying to avoid that feeling like you're slammed, like when does it become too much? When do you fall off the cliff? I think they've transitioned nicely from grades based on your policy. We did talk a little bit about a big jump from 5 to 6, but at some point, what's that jump look like? So I think the teachers are working, diligently to make sure that it doesn't feel like that much, that it's just a natural transition from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. So I think it's been a good year. We have more work to do. We have more work to do. I don't know if we'll ever find the answer, Mr. Yasenko, as to whether or not, does homework have value for everyone, or that's the million-dollar question. We're trying to make sure that it has value for Hampstead. Whatever we're doing, and I think they've done a nice job in the spirit of the policy change, and I would be supportive of, if the board would allow some more work, in the next year to try to get to a place where we're all really comfortable. Just quickly, I do commend the work of the teachers and your administrators. They've worked really hard to try to deliver on what you asked for. So I hope that you're pleased with their work. I certainly am, and I hope that we can continue. Now, next year we're reorganizing a bit. Curriculum, professional development, mentoring, very much involved. The people in the trenches doing that work with support from the administrative staff. So I think we'll only get better at this, and those are my takeaways. I think the final piece from a parent, I think communication, I don't necessarily think it's more. I think, to your point, I think the conversation has just changed, and I think that's been a good thing, so communication. But, the communication can always get better. I'm hoping that the students feel that way. I certainly hope parents feel that way and teachers feel that way, that we're all kind of getting to the same page. So I didn't find this to be as controversial as perhaps I thought it might be as we kind of unpack this and got going on this. So Certainly. I don't know if you have any questions for me. I knew it. I shouldn't have asked. I'll go ahead.
No, seriously. You talk about consistency and all. I would like you or anyone, explain to the board what you see happening if homework were eliminated. Who's going to suffer?
Well, I think, we had a similar conversation right around this time last year. I'd ask you the same question. What if we double or tripled homework? Would achievement increase? I don't think it's absolute. I don't think your question has an absolute answer to it. I think for some, I think learning would suffer for some. I think if we doubled and tripled homework, I think learning would increase for some, but I don't think it's absolute. So I think that's where the personalized learning piece comes in, trying to make sure that we personalize it. And to your point, if some kids are forced to be independent so early because they don't have help at home, that's not great. So that's where the communication, hopefully is taking place. I know it is with teachers and parents. So I don't have an absolute answer for your question, other than I think it would be some, not all.
Question. So I'm looking at this as like change management. We're going from a homework policy to something less. And I heard one of the teachers had said it's a little bit learning for them because where they would typically have a couple assignments at night to finish up the assignment for the day, they now have to put into the next day. So that's lengthening how much time is being for that subject. And then I guess some things are being lost because you're spending twice as much time. So some of the curriculum isn't being taught. Is that a true statement?
Well, I don't want to speak for some not being taught. We get into pacing, right? So if more class time is being taken up on tasks that would have been completed outside,
right.
There's a pretty simple answer to that. Of course, right. There's less means less, right?
So my question is, are we now looking at that and kind of learning what we're going to do next year, how we're going to apply it so we're not losing that time, and what kind of steps are being taken? How are you incorporating that?
Well, I think that's a work in progress. So they're all self-reflective practitioners. So you always take a look at what you were able to accomplish given the time that you have, face time with students. And I think that was going to take some time, I think, to refine. Those things like that typically take 3 to 5 years. It's not something that you just, wish into place. So I think, I'm sure teachers will be reflecting on what they were able to get through this year and how they did it, and they'll be planning their lessons and pacing accordingly. They work as teams and certainly vertically, right through the system, but they also have to work, grade level teams to make sure that all of our students are getting a very similar, again, we're not robots, a very similar experience no matter which teacher you end up having. So it's more of a Hempstead school district experience, not necessarily experience that's specific to one teacher. So I didn't know if you wanted to go into any more detail about.
You're exactly right. It's a reflective process.
Right.
We're going through this first year, and now there's a lot of discussions happening at the team levels of what do we change, what do we do, how do we move forward. And just like when you start a new curriculum program, it takes,
right.
That first year you're diving in, now you're really figuring it out. It's a process.
Right. And that's what
a lot of dialogue, a lot of sharing, collaboration.
Well, that's what I was thinking about, like the FLES program that we were just discussing, right? You 1 year at a time, then you go to 2 years, then you slowly move up to it. So I didn't know what other actions, anybody and experts that other schools that have done this, have we brought them in and talked to them about how they did it, how they transitioned, learned from those that have already done it? I just think that,
I think our work, it's not unique, like we're the only district in the world that's doing something like this, but I think the Hempstead work is somewhat unique. We have more of a hybrid version. They're philosophical, there's different ways to go about work, and so what we're talking more is about scaffolding as opposed to, spiraling or that sort of thing. So it's about building on your experiences. So I think, that will be a work in progress. It'll continue to be a major focus of everything we do in terms of curriculum, professional development, mentoring. That's really the work. And so the communication piece, the board has made that really what's clear. The frustrating piece, if the answer, if this was a research project to find out the answer to Mrs. Yasenka's question, I don't think we're going to find that answer, right? Your research, their research, his research. There's research that supports, and you'll say, show me the research. I think our research, Hempstead, I think we're getting to a place that Hempstead will be very comfortable with the way they do things, which will be very different from places that don't do it at all or places that do it too much. So. For us, it's just trying to get it just right for the people here. We've heard from parents that want more, and we hear from people that don't want it at all. And so, trying to figure out where they're coming from and why, and what's in the best interest of all. I think it gets back to that personalized learning piece. If we can get to a place where all kids are getting what they need, and it'll be different for every individual, I mean, that's great. I mean, that's good stuff. So that's where we hope, that's really where I hope we get. You know, and if communication really increases to the point where all parents are comfortable, feel very much involved in their children's education, and they're active participants, and they have daily contact or weekly contact with teachers as they get older, that's great too. But I can tell you, a lot of places that's not taking place the way it does here. You know?
And I'll just leave with, actually, just this weekend, my daughter had asked, I want more math homework. I reached out to the teacher. She's preparing more for her. So we're getting that individualized above it, so it's good.
Yeah, trying to personalize. And I think, you know, if there are people that need to opt out for different reasons, you know, we're sensitive to that. I don't know how comfortable people are yet asking. Some are. Some will ask you day one. Some will take some time, and we'll try to make sure that we were able to connect the dots for all families here in Hampstead and make sure that all kids are getting exactly what they need.
Good.
I had a couple quick questions.
Go
That I
ahead.
didn't ask, little question marks that I
Go
put
one
on there
after you.
as I heard them. 7th grade, teachers said 26 minutes, students said 50. Do you remember what that was? Did you guys flesh that out a little bit, or?
Yeah, that's all yours. That's at 7th grade, I think.
And that's good
But they get
feedback.
lucky at 26 minutes.
Yeah, no
Right?
kidding, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and again, it's perspective, and I think sometimes the teachers feel like they're really, that the assignment's going to take a certain amount of time, and it doesn't, but I think one of the things, what I've taken away from this, because I've been on the outside looking in for the community and then implementing the policy, is that you're looking at quality, not quantity, and you're trying to take care of every child and not pile it on. Like when we were in school, it was just a deluge of homework. Our teachers in their professional learning communities, that is now something that people did in isolation as islands. Now they're talking about it in their personal professional learning communities, and saying, boy, I've got a test coming up on Friday, I've got homework on Thursday, that you've got the 5 content area teachers speaking every day and checking in. Are we putting too much homework here? Is it too much homework there? And trying to parse it out so that the children are, you know, not feeling overwhelmed by it. And we went through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments and put them in categories, so we weren't just talking off the cuff, but to give you the sentiment of what's coming from the parents, the students, and the teachers. So I think our work is good at looking at the quality of the work and not overtaxing our kids, but also giving them the skills that they need to be successful.
A couple quick ones. Student comments, impact on daily life, 37% negative. Any general information you can give us on that? What are they saying is negative?
We get everything
They want
from, I
more?
don't have enough time to play pick the name of a video game, that the kids, Fortnite or something along that line, to others that I don't like it because I'd like to have more time for my soccer practices or my piano lessons. So we heard all over the place there. So to sit back, this is where I say we need another year to dig deeper to figure out what those negative comments really tell us, because that's a lot of negative comments, but I also want to make sure that they're clean and understanding. The teachers really haven't seen all of the comments yet, because we were trying to summarize this just to be ready for here this evening. But as we go into the new year, we're going to be very forthright with the teachers. This is what we're hearing from parents. This is where we need to improve our practice, and this is what we found to be really good practice. You heard our teachers talk tonight about the dialogue has improved tremendously about this discussion, which is great. That's a great outcome. Now, are we where we want to be yet? No, but we're not there yet.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
No.
I want to circle back to one of the conclusions, and this was something that stuck for me last year when we were trying to get this policy moving. This piece about the accountability or the reporting pieces for work habits. I know it's been taken out this year. It sounds like are you talking about putting it back in?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the same question I asked last year. I find it very hard to figure out how you guys, and I'm sure you can, but how you can evaluate it when just because a student finished an assignment, you don't know if that took 10 minutes or if that took that child 30 minutes or an hour, how are you, and how does that play into, is it just that they finished it? So as long as they finished it, they're getting satisfactory or 100 or whatever?
I would say if I were ever talking to a teacher, a parent, or a student, my answer would be consistent. Did you meet the expectation of what you were needing to learn for that assignment? And if you did not get it done in the time frame that we've allotted, how can you meet that need? Which means the teacher and the parent need to have a conversation, as well as the child, to say, okay, there are some children that their pace of doing work is there. I've said to many parents, you need to shut it down. Because many parents will say, well, let's just keep plowing. I'm going to give them more work, I've said more this year than I have in the previous 10 years to say to parents, please pay attention to what that policy says, which says, shut it down. Have more time with your family at dinner. And I've actually had 3 or 4 parents recently come back to me and said, thank you. That's all they needed to hear was permission from a principal or a teacher. Now, I know every single one of those teachers have said that to a parent. Maybe we need to say that more often just to make that a point of emphasis. And there are going to be parents, like David, asking, okay, your daughter's at a spot where this would be useful for her. Reach out to the teacher and what can we do to make it pertinent for your child? And that's good. That's the reason we have great teachers. They're practitioners. They know what's going to be best for those individual children. So it has to go back to did you show what you needed to learn?
Right.
That may mean the teacher next year needs to do a review lesson on this piece. Shut it down. That happens in the classroom with Kara Gordon. The kid's got some assignment. She can see that kid sitting over there plowing. It's like she goes and taps him on the shoulder. Come on, let's talk about it. Just the same way you're the first teacher at home, do the same thing.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that. I'm still confused how we're going to evaluate this, I guess, is where my...
How
and
can
maybe-
you evaluate work habits that are being done at home? You don't know how much time the child is spending on it, how much the parent is engaged with doing the homework. How many times did the parent have to tell the kid, you've got to finish your homework. Now come on, you've got to finish your homework. Is that a good work habit? I don't understand how you're going to define or evaluate a work habit. You can define and evaluate work habits of kids when they're in your presence in their classroom. How are you going to do it when they're home?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, hopefully the spirit as we move forward will be more about seeking commitment, not compliance. So this won't be a compliance grade. So commitment to what? So commitment will be the relationship between the student, the teacher, and the parent. Mm-hmm. And so our hope would be as we start to look at these, at that reporting out, that there's a commitment, right? So it's not just compliance. Yes, check the box, I did it. Here, here's a 4 or here's an A. So, to your point too, that would be that relationship with the teacher, parent, and student, figuring out how to come up with some way to assess that. Mm-hmm. You're right. How can you say works diligently? How could I, as a classroom teacher, works diligently at home? Unless, of course, I have that commitment to that relationship with the parent. So I would think that would be something that would take place through that communication piece. So it wouldn't be a surprise to any parent what they saw there. They would already know what that relationship looked like.
Right. This is the only piece about this. I'm glad we've taken this year. I'm personally glad to give it another year to see how we learn. This part sticks with me only, I feel like I look at individual children. I look at one of mine who speeds through homework in 10 minutes. I can tell you I don't think she always does her best work on that. Whereas her friend spends an hour on the same thing, and they both get to the same place, but there's an argument there about work habit.
Well, wouldn't you want that to be the communication that gives the parent the help that the teacher and the parent are on the same page, and it's a message we're trying to send to
I agree, but I'm thinking, this comes to me more middle school than central school. I do feel like as you get to middle school, as it should be, the children take on more responsibility for their own work. I don't communicate with my middle schoolers' teachers probably as much as I did in central school. So I feel like there's ambiguity here that I'm a little uncomfortable with.
Can I just point out, this is only in grades 3, 4, and 5 that we're talking about.
Are those the only grades that are going to have?
6, 7, and 8 already have
Oh, I thought we took it out for all of them.
No,
they
we
have-
only discontinued
Well,
the
there's an
practice.
effort. Are we talking about the effort thing?
The work habit grade?
Yeah.
Includes homework, Ashley.
The homework conduct and effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as I listen to the conversation, obviously the directives become very clear as to what we need to work on, where our focus needs to be. You know, this is clearly something that needs to be more clear. So it's not, so there isn't an ambiguous component to this that.
Right.
And really, anything that we use, I struggled with this a few years ago when they wanted to go to a standard-based reporting card in Timberlane, not to bring Timberlane up in a Hampstead meeting, but
Yeah,
I
please
said
don't.
the reporting out tool is useless if the parents don't understand it and they can't use it with their children. So,
Right.
to your point, if whatever we're using to report out, that's really got to be, a commitment between the parent and the teacher so that it makes sense. So that same conversation is taking place at home. Not everybody works the same at home as they do in school and vice versa,
Yeah.
So I think it's just more information to use to help, empower kids to really do the best that they possibly can do.
Yeah.
So if the tool has no value, then we need to really look at the tool, either not use it at all, or make sure that it has value. So I think that's really the part, and the value really is at home. So that whole Timberlane thing, I was like, we can't have a report card that doesn't make any sense to parents. Just like we can't have any component here in Hampstead. If it's not helpful to them, it doesn't mean anything, or it's not really measuring anything, or it's not really helpful, then we wouldn't use it. But I think, in 6, 7, and 8, it seems to be, parents aren't shy. They reach out pretty quickly to any of us about particular issues. And then, obviously I reach out to the two principals when that happens. So I think we're in an okay place, but the work is very clear, as I listen to the conversation, moving forward.
Go ahead, David.
I think for me, I'd like to know, we know what the students were doing for grades before we put this assignment in, like a class average or a bell curve of how the student population was in each grade. I'd like to know, how this impacts now, the first year. Are the fifth graders still on that kind of curve, or did no homework or less homework mean less of a good grade? Measuring it to say, back to your point, Karen, right? If less homework means they're still doing the same, well, let's try next year maybe a little less and see how that goes with the curve.
Yeah, I think we can obviously do a statistical analysis. I don't know if there's any correlation. I guess that was my point to the question.
Multi-year. I mean, it's not like you can just do 1 year of this, but if you do multi-year and you see it's still the same grades, it speaks to that, to your point, less homework or more homework doesn't necessarily mean better grades or means less grades.
Yeah, and I'd have a hard time making that connection to standardized testing too. And then we're looking at this year's fifth grade. Are we looking at them as sixth graders? Are we looking at them are we comparing this year's fifth grade to last year's fifth grade? I mean, those are kind of value judgments that you have to make in terms of the variables.
Just because you have different kids?
Yep,
But
but you still, if you have
Longer term,
multi-years, yes.
Yes,
it's-
longer term,
Yes,
yeah. Year to year is hard.
right, but if we have like the
Several
last
years.
4 years of fifth graders, compare the next 2 years of fifth graders, and the grades are still staying the same with less homework, that says something.
Yeah. And then, obviously we need to look at standardized tests and grades and,
Right.
there's just a lot of moving parts to that, I think. I don't know if the science is there, but it's certainly something we should look at. We can make our own judgments based on
Right.
on the data we see, but
Right, just like the polls, we got to use some judgment there based on what we hear, because just because they want to play Fortnite doesn't mean we let them go play Fortnite for 5 hours.
yeah. I would just caution in terms of validity and reliability based on what we're looking at, just because you can take some leaps that maybe aren't sound,
Understood.
It seems like there are a number of things here, though, that we agree on, and that if you eliminate homework, they would still be in place, and we would still be agreeing on them. We've spent a lot of time on this. There was a study committee. We spent all last year working on this. Now you're looking at spending a whole another year to look at trying to approve, eliminate whatever you're doing with homework. But I think I've heard it, we've said, we all agree that reading should be encouraged. To say there's no homework is not to say we're not giving children extending learning opportunities, or that they can't work on their long-term projects, their science projects, their community projects. Basically what we're doing is getting rid of the busy work, daily homework that's there to meet some 10-minute or 20-minute schedule that's in a policy. And that's kind of what I'm objecting to, because I think that we're doing this anyway. We're just not saying we want to get rid of homework. They have and the kids that need, quote, extra help, that's always been in place. Hampstead's always done that. If your child needs more time in math, well, then the teachers are there for them, and that's a communication with the parent. And we're all saying that reading should be in place. We all agree that extended learning should happen. No one's saying get rid of working at home if you're working on a science project 3 months out. So I don't really know what you're going to spend your next year on trying to refine this policy. That's all I'm saying. It seems like you're going to waste another year trying to refine a policy, and all this work isn't really needed.
I think now, it's a little bit semantics, right? Because it's work being done at home, so it's homework, right?
Well, actually, it's schoolwork that's being done at home, because homework is really playtime, piano time, sports time. When you bring the work home, it's just schoolwork that's being done at home.
In some instances, I would say, just like our Blizzard Bag program, that's not necessarily, we're replacing a school day with work at home. So, there are things philosophically that we do. I would say, the only thing I would disagree with that you said, I don't believe our teachers are assigning busy work as an absolute thing. I don't believe they're just giving kids things to do to keep them busy to meet some time requirement. I think they've taken quite a long, hard look at this to make sure that that's not what they're doing, that they're personalizing learning and it's supporting what's going on during the day, and they're trying to make it work within the policy. I don't see it as busy work. So that would be the only piece I think I would disagree, I think.
So you're arguing with the term busy work.
Well, busy work would be
fine.
work that's just assigned to try to
I
meet
think
some...
everybody knows what busy work is, because we've had it for years. All the schools have had it for years.
Well, you defined it as work that was just to try to make some sort of time, and I don't think that's what they're doing. I think that the work that they're doing is supporting what they're doing during the day, and it's not just busy work. I don't think it's just rote kind of going through. I think they've done a really good job. In the past, was some of the work going home that was busy work? Perhaps. What's busy work? Crossword puzzles, word searches, those sorts of things. I think the teachers have been very creative to personalize learning this year, and I think they've done a really good job making sure that kids are getting what they need. So that's why I said it's just semantics. It's work being done at home. Call it homework, call it schoolwork at home. I think that there needs to be that kind of support outside of the classroom if we want to kind of stay kind of where Hampstead has been accustomed to, which is, on the top of most lists in terms of student achievement, right?
I think what is making me want to do another year and see where we are is what I'm hearing from both administration and teachers, that the conversations are happening. I know it's not as fast and as final as we may want it to be, but I think having those conversations and examining kind of what was originally presented, Doris, I know there was the meaningful discussion that it needs to be, it seems like that mind shift has happened. Not that it wasn't already happening, but when it's official, you kind of have to, if you have a few people who aren't following it, you kind of herd them in and they learn from the ones who have been doing it for a long time. So I think it would be great if we could jump into this all at once. I think the conversations happening is encouraging.
Mm-hmm. You're entitled to your opinion.
I know.
Well, I know, and we all have our own opinions, right? And I would just echo what Caitlin said. I don't think the spirit of what you wanted to see happen is lost in all of this. I really don't. It may not be absolute. It may not shock the system. It may not be overnight. But I can tell you, I don't think the spirit of what you wanted is lost. I think, social emotional health is being really looked at. Our what I need, kind of our win periods. What kids need. I think a lot of those things have. You've shined a really bright light on something, and I think that the professionals that you have in place are working really hard on it. And so I don't think it's lost.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? Okay. I don't know that we need any sort of vote. We're just keeping things in place.
No, I think part of this was I'm a process person. We just completed what was asked of us with the new policy, the new procedures, trying to figure it out, training staff, having conversations, analyzing it, getting input and feedback. All of that is a process. And that's why we're here tonight, giving you that feedback, which I think this was a great conversation. And, you know, not that it has to be an absolute decision tonight. We did what you were asked, which is to bring it to you as an evaluation. So if there's going to be more that's going to be done with this, that's going to have to be another time, based on, you know, some of the feedback that we continue to get. So I would encourage that in terms of next year, to just keep elicit that feedback and have those conversations. Because it is a shifting, the sand has shifted on this topic, and it isn't, it's not concrete like it used to be. There's a lot of different people's values in it. So,
I also
thank
think
you.
that when we reevaluate this, we should have students come and talk about what they think of the policy rather than hearing from teachers, administrators, and parents. This is geared towards students, so we should talk to them about what they think of it.
I think that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up and reminding us of exactly who should be the center of this. Thank you very much, Emma.
Well, speaking on that topic, are you going to
Mic
do
drop.
another survey next year? So, because you're going to have kids go to the different, bump up to the different level, no homework to homework, or 30 minutes to 50, 60, 80, or whatever.
I would imagine that they're going to receive some type of feedback going forward. So if it's the same survey or if it's different, but yeah, as we should. It does, it helps.
That is a good point.
We want
Those
the same type of
Those bumps.
feedback.
Yeah. What that transition was like for them. I like it. So
Okay.
maybe next spring, we do another kind of update. Just keep it on the way back burner behind
I'll
everything
tell
else.
Melissa to put it on the agenda.
Thanks, Roxanne. Just
Want to
remind
call
us.
and remind us?
Just remind, yeah.
I'll
Can
call
you
and
put a
remind
reminder in
you.
your phone? Yeah, thanks. All right. We got that done. Now we're on to data governance plan, second read. As Dr. Dancy asked us last time, hopefully you read through and have your questions ready for him, because this is very thorough. I don't want to go through it again.
I was just going to say, last month I gave a riveting presentation, and tonight all I'm going to do is say, please vote on it.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or concerns? Can I have a motion to accept, wait, do I have this on here?
So moved. Oh, did you not finish?
Yeah, can I have a motion to accept the data governance plan as presented by Dr. Dancy? Is that right?
Yes.
So moved.
Can I have a second? Any discussion?
Thank you very much.
Oh, we
All the
haven't
work.
voted yet.
I'm still saying thank you. That's my discussion with him.
All in favor?
No, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dancy,
Thank
for
you.
all of your due diligence with you and your department in getting that job done. That was a
Yes.
huge task.
Thank you very much. Okay, central school renovation discussion. I asked to have this put on the agenda for a couple of reasons. One, to continue to talk about it. There's been a lot of points made that we can't just bring it up starting in December and get movement. So part of it is to keep this on the forefront. The other piece is there is a construction committee, or there has been. I think the most prudent thing at this point is to bring those players back together, those who are interested in continuing to be involved, to get some answers about what new costs are going to look like, what our options are in terms of paying for it, for renovations, and I just think it's worth it to continue that discussion. We'd kind of like to have board consensus that it's okay to reach out and also talk about, do we have other board members who want to be involved in a committee, on that committee? You know, Karen and I have served on it. We can continue to, we can add people, we can, whatever.
Yeah, I'd rather not serve on it going
Okay.
forward.
Okay.
I've been doing this for like 4 years now, so.
Yeah, that's Perfectly understandable. So I don't think we need a vote, but if we have board consensus that it's okay to bring together this committee again and continue to talk to our experts and our staff and our administration. General?
Yep.
Gonna do it.
Did you meet with Gino yet?
No, not yet.
That's my fault. I haven't gotten.
Nope.
That's totally my fault. I keep forgetting.
What would you like to call this committee, just so that you?
We'll just keep calling it the construction committee.
Okay.
I would like to, I guess at this point, continue to be involved. I've been there for a while, as is Karen. David, I know you've talked about interest.
Yep.
I don't feel the need to limit this to 2 board members. If there are other, wait. Nope, I have to limit it to 2 board members. Otherwise.
You have a meeting.
Yep, otherwise we have a meeting. Okay. Are you guys okay with David and I doing it? And
Also, you couldn't even show up.
what?
A third person couldn't even show up
No.
for one meeting. This one.
We had one time, we had a 3rd board member, but they were there as a
Observer.
citizen.
They sat as a citizen. and
Yes.
gave
Are you on the
information.
facilities committee?
I am.
Okay. I was trying to remember which one.
I mean, if anybody wants to fight me for it, you can. But I just think some continuity there is helpful. Okay, so if general consensus is I'll work with Melissa and Kathy and see who still wants to be involved of our experts and who wants to say, no, you're all crazy. And we'll talk about getting together for a meeting. And I will write myself a note to get Gino's contact information to both of you so you can talk to him. And we'll just go from there. And the board will be updated. If we need to bring people in to talk and present, we will. And we'll go from there. Anybody else have anything they wanted to say? I just talked a lot. No, okay. Nope, nope. All right, we're just going to keep going. Policies for first and second read. We have, so second read, we have GCF, KED, LI, EH, IHAH, IHBAA, and JI. And then we have a first read, and you guys had this in the email regarding our agenda packets this week. We have 2 first read policies, which are DFA and DAF, which Jeff, I would like to talk about these just so you can give, wait, hold on one second. Can we do the second read? Can we do them together or do we have to split them up?
I think for ease of doing this, let's just split up policies, the 7 ones that are for
Right.
second read, and go through that.
Okay.
And then handle this first reading, which really we're going to waive
Right,
the
we're going to
second
talk about that. Right.
reading, and he's going to talk about that.
Okay,
So,
so let's start with the 7 policies that we have for second read. So we have seen these before. We passed them through first read. Can I have a motion to accept, and then we can discuss it?
I'd like to make the motion to accept the 7 policies in the second read. GCF, KED, LI, EH, IHAH, IHBAA, and JI.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
We can discuss, and if anybody has any questions, we'll just take a few minutes. Does anybody have any comments, discussion?
None.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the 7 policies for second read?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, Jeff. Now, if you could speak to us about these
Certainly.
DFA and DAF, and about the waiving of first or second, whatever, first or second.
We'll get through it.
Yeah,
This is
thanks.
a very unique situation, so that's why I've asked Mr. Dowd to come and speak to it.
Well, I'll speak to the first policy, DFA, which is the investment policy, and I don't think that we have any changes that are being proposed. This is a policy that we should review periodically. We do reaffirm at the beginning of the school year, or not reaffirm, but we do accept if people have reviewed at the beginning of each school year. However, it would be good to formally review it as we are now. And there really aren't any changes to the policy being proposed, but it would be good to have that policy reaffirmed and note that the board has taken a look at it. It's been a little over 5 years since its last review. The investment policy itself is, I want to say generally standard, but it is a general proposition. The district does not hold so much in funds that it actually has funds to invest. Typically, those are done at the town level, and the town funds us periodically, and the town does more of the investing. They hold the cash longer than we do. We bill on an as-needed basis. I actually have a memorandum that I'm going to send around that will show you what that billing schedule is to the town. So that's policy DFA. That's being proposed for first read, and at your next meeting or whenever posted, that would go for second read. Would that be correct?
For the first one?
DFA, investment.
Right. Well, no, we're just reaffirming.
Right. Does that need to go to a second read to reaffirm?
No.
No?
No. Usually when you reaffirm, it's that you make that decision.
On
There's
first.
nothing to change for a second read, usually.
On first read?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no need to waive policy, then would it be appropriate for the board to fashion a motion relative to reaffirming that policy if they're so
Right.
inclined to do so?
You can just reaffirm.
So should we make a motion to reaffirm? Do we need a motion to reaffirm? Okay.
Because that's when we end up putting the date on here that it was
Okay.
reaffirmed.
We'll split this up again then. Can I have a motion to reaffirm policy DFA for investment?
So motioned.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Does anybody have any additional questions for Mr. Dowd on this one? Okay.
I think Jason may have a schedule of disbursements, the way that we bill the town, just coincidental to the reading of this policy, what I just mentioned. If you wanted to pass copies down, it's just FYI, I've revised that second half of the year, and this is what I'm dropping off to the selectmen.
There's two different issues going here. Can we just do the policy first?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Not discuss this right now?
Okay. All in favor of reaffirming DFA? Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay,
And
next.
that schedule is passed around only so you can see the breakdown disbursement of funds and why we don't necessarily invest and why we have an investment policy in the event that we do. But we really don't. We're spread out throughout the year. So I don't need any action on the memo. It's just an FYI.
So could we, for the public, because I don't believe this is on the agenda, could you just reiterate what this is that went around?
Sure. Yes, so what you have is a schedule of billings that I put together on an annual basis and revise it at the end of the year. In July, I send the first request out to the town with the whole year listed. We shore up revenues and finalize our revenues. Getting into the second half of the year, the appropriations are confirmed, and so this is the second part of that memo where I've revised the June payment to reflect the fact that the town now owes us less than they did at the beginning of the year because our revenue situation is approved by the DRA, is requesting less from the town. We're appropriating less. So you can see that we spread it out throughout the year, approximately time to meet our cash flow needs, which allows the town to hang on to its tax receipts longer. And the town treasurer does the investment on that end. So, interesting enough. So, the second policy that you have is policy DAF. And I know, Jeff, it's 22 pages. I know. Sorry. So, the New Hampshire Department of Education came in a while back and did what they call fiscal monitoring. They come in and we go through some of the grants that we have, our processes, procedures. They do some testing. Everything was fine, but they came back and made a recommendation that we adopt a certain slew, if you will, of policies that the state itself had not been enforcing and the federal regulations had changed. So I said, well, that's great, and this was some time ago, but we were coming up with our own implementation based on the Code of Federal Regulations. That's really not how we're comfortable adopting policies. I asked the Department of Ed if they could provide sample language. They wouldn't do it. I said, can you work with the New Hampshire School Board Association to come up with that language? Because it wasn't just us as a district, it was a number of other districts. They came up with this policy DAF, which is actually, if you will, a series of 10 policies combined under one administration of federal grants policy. So as I best understand it, the DOE has worked with the New Hampshire School Board Association, and they've harmonized this policy to meet with their requirements for school districts. So it is one policy, again, administration of federal grants broken up into 10 sub-policies. I'm not going to bore you going through each of them, but I will for the public list that they are a DAF-1, which is allowability, DAF-2, which is cash management and fund control, DAF-3, procurement, DAF-4, procurement, additional provisions pertinent to food service programs, DAF-5, conflict of interest and mandatory disclosures, DAF-6, inventory management, equipment and supplies purchased with federal funds, DAF-7, travel reimbursements, federal funds, DAF-8, accountability and certifications, 9, time effort reporting and oversight, and 10, grant budget reconciliation. So I went through the proposed language or the proposed policy by NHSBA, tailored to the needs of our district, and you have a copy of that policy in front of you now. We have policies in place already that touch on some of these areas, but with respect to federal purchasing, procurement, there are specialized requirements. So even where we have our own policy for procurement, if the grant is a federal expenditure in nature, we would then look to the federal expenditures policy for more specific guidance as to what would be required for federal compliance purposes with those sorts of expenditures.
I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to review this, and then we can talk about questions.
This is just for first read, so we could actually take this and read it and come back to questions, no? Or do you have a deadline on this or something?
Yeah, go ahead.
We could. We
Okay.
could, because we can do this, but I didn't know if there was something that you needed to make sure that it was to waive the second read.
I would like to be able to report back to DOE that we've reviewed their recommendations and that we will at some point be able to implement this policy. And I believe there may be are there 1 or 2 meetings left?
The second read would be on the 11th, June 11th. Does that meet the deadline that you needed?
Well, it does. It's not so much the concern of the 11th or not. It's more a concern of, if something should happen that you don't meet on the 11th or the meeting doesn't happen, for whatever reason, or this isn't addressed at that meeting, I'd like to make sure that I can report back before summer that we've reviewed and that the board has taken action to adopt this policy. Whether or not we have this policy in place, we're still going to comply with federal law and continue to treat, federal expenditures the way we have, which is in compliance with the law. So if you'd like to pass it, I don't know that there's
So
too
you
much.
basically just have to report back that you've given this to us and we've reviewed it at this point?
No, you've adopted it. Well, reviewed it, meaning you've adopted it.
Well, we're not going to adopt it till the next meeting anyway.
Up to you, yeah.
Then we'll waive it.
And
Right, we don't have to, that's
you
just.
you don't have to waive it.
No.
It's 22 pages, not going to waive it.
The other thing, for those of us who've managed federal grants, we're very knowledgeable about some of these items, not all, but because it is a partnership between the business office and the program managers. But there are some things that, as I was looking through this, I was like, oh, it's much more specific. So there are going to be some things that we'll have to report out to make sure that the grant managers understand how to keep the time and effort reports. We do it a little bit differently, but it's okay. We know what the time and effort reports are. So, those are the things that we're going to work with the grant managers on how to do some of this. So a lot of it we're already doing, but it's written in the legalese of a federal policy.
What about these other related policies? Do any of those have to change, be amended because of this language? Is there anything that's maybe conflicting?
That's a good question. That's a fair question. So you'll see, for example, DJB, purchasing processes.
Right.
So that's one that we have on the books right now, and that really speaks to our general purchasing or general expenditures for those purposes. So where we have our general expenditures, that would be the policy, and if we have federal expenditures or grant-related expenditures, we would turn to the policy DAF. So is there a conflict? Well, there is, but if you're spending federal funds, we're using the policy DAF. It's actually with some irony that our policy, for example, for purchasing is a lot more stringent, let's say, than what the federal government considers in their policies. Okay. They identify 4 procurement methods. They look at micro purchases. Those purchases don't exceed $10,000. Small purchases, federal government small purchases, a competitive bid threshold of $250,000. Sealed bids, $250,000 or above. Our own policy is much more stringent than that.
Okay, I didn't know if it'd be the opposite.
Wouldn't you think? Yeah.
Right.
So, but
Okay.
we must have pretty good policies in place in regard to how we treat, expenditures from small purchases. $250,000 must be the federal government. So that's their recommended language. I've included it, and I think the problem with it is that any deviation from their language, even if it works to make it tighter in control, they're going to view it as a change. So that's your language that you want. That's where I'm fine including that for federal purchasing, no problem.
And remember, this refers to our Title I and our Title II and our Title IV grants. It's really, and IDEA, special ed. Those are our federal grants, so we have to, when we're purchasing, or we're purchasing equipment, or we're purchasing salaries, it depends on what we're doing and which one of these policies that we have to abide by.
As we go through the policies that are listed below, the referenced policies, we will make a note on them as they're reviewed or reaffirmed for federal expenditures, C, policy DAF-2-3, whatever it is that's applicable. So I don't know that too much would change in the policy. If you have any questions, if you'd like to waive second reading and vote tonight, feel free. If you'd like to wait until the next meeting, feel free. If you have any questions in the interim, you can let me know.
Do we want to not waive? That seems to be the I don't know.
I'm okay with waiving it, because I'm not reading it. I trust him. Other things, we're more involved in. What am I going to fix, a typo? I'm not going to know that language. It's just, you know what I mean?
I tend to agree with that.
But
it is a long policy, so.
I mean, I wouldn't know if that number 5,000 is correct, or that word. I don't know. I have to trust Jeff, and I do. I'm willing. I'm not saying if you don't waive it, you don't trust Jeff. I'm not saying that, but it's just no, not at all.
I mean, personally, I feel like if there are any members, you've spoken up, so I'm not pinpointing you, but I think if there's any members who don't want to waive it, then we just don't.
Yeah.
To me, that it should be a unanimous decision. That's my
I don't have a problem waiving it. I just thought we were going to move, I didn't know we needed it right away. We usually second read, it's just our practice. We get it first and we wait 2 weeks, look it over, and then come back and vote on it. But if nobody has the time to read 22 pages, Jim, we can waive it.
Oh, I don't have the time to do anything. I will if I have to, but I don't know what I'm reading.
Okay, so between Jeff and Roxanne, is there anything in here that you object to, or anything that's red flagged, anything that we need to know about in order to?
I don't object to anything in the policy. A lot of what is in there we're already doing. I don't I don't think there are any red flags. I think it's somewhat of a novelty to note that the policy covers things that we don't necessarily, do. But it's all encompassing, and they want the policy in place even if you don't undertake the practice that they're describing. It's more of the novelty of the whole thing. There's nothing objectionable in the policy. A lot of it just doesn't. I don't want to say it's not relevant, but it's not what we're doing now.
There are some procedures that I think we're going to have to tighten up. The travel procedure, I don't know if we have it actually written, we have a form, but this, is informing us to do things a little bit differently in that. It's not going to change our process too much.
No.
But, so we have looked at it.
Let me make a motion to waive it.
Okay, we'll just vote.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to waive second read of policy DAF?
So moved.
Wait, did I do it wrong?
Well, I'm wondering if you should waive the first read and go right to the second, because second is where you always adopt it.
Okay, I'm going to rescind that and instead say waive first read of policy DAF. Can I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just want to know timeline on revising any other policies, procedures. Is that something that typically is in like a month? Is that, what do we typically do when we have a policy like this go in place?
The procedures, they can come at any time.
Yep.
Most of the procedures are going to have to be figured out, I think, over the summer.
Okay.
Before some of the grants. When we start really procuring different materials or
Right.
services.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, because I know that last time we met, 1, 2, and 4 is usually during the summer, so I didn't know if we needed to get those procedures in place in
No,
order
we're
to have
good.
these. Okay.
We're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of waiving first read?
Thank you.
Okay, so
Now
now we need a
adopt.
motion to accept policy DAF on second read.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you.
Very well.
Okay. Next is the summer hiring authorization. So under policy GCF, the school board elects one member to act on personnel matters over the summer because we don't usually have meetings during the summer. And then on our first board meeting of the school year, those are all presented to the board, any hiring actions. I think in the past, we've done the chair, but if somebody else wants it, you can.
I think I did it last year.
Did you? You did do it. I think you did do it
It
last
was
year.
Mr. Sweeney last
Okay.
year.
It can be anybody. Anybody want to?
What it
don't think
really
I had to do
entails is
anything.
coming to the
I
SAU
nominate Jason.
weekly or bi-weekly to be able to sign off on the personnel roster so that we can go ahead and start hiring and getting contracts ready. And so hiring can be done. And then in August, you get a list of all the work that's been done through the summer. We've actually done most of the hiring this last week. So there will still be some hiring for sure, but a lot of it has been done. The professional staff for HEA, a lot of that has been done this week.
I don't mind doing it unless someone else is interested.
I nominate the new guy. Really?
I feel like Jason's got it. Jim, you want to do it again?
Sure, it was so much work last year. I cannot believe I'm doing it again. No, how many times did I go there? Maybe once? I
Maybe
don't know.
three,
Two?
two,
Yeah.
Not many.
yeah.
Since he's so experienced.
My kids are driving by that office all the time anyways. They like stopping in. Some people have snacks.
They have snacks because you have cute kids.
That's the truth. Oh, that's true.
All right, I'm going to nominate Jim Sweeney. Sorry.
Do I have to be nominated?
Done.
I think so.
Yeah, we have to
Oh,
vote. on it.
designate.
We have to vote on it.
To act on the behalf of the school, the full board.
Oh, should I say it? Okay. I motion to designate Jim Sweeney as the board member who is authorized to act on personnel matters while the board is not in session during the summer months. Wait a second.
Second.
It's pretty official.
I'm reading it. They write these out. It's great. All in favor? Oh, sorry, I should have asked it.
Do I not?
No, you can.
I'm in favor.
I had to vote for myself.
No, it just felt strange. Should I campaign for that position?
I don't know.
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Do I need a speech?
congratulations. Yes. Would you like a speech? You can give a speech, yeah. All right, next is suspension authorization. This is annual board authorization for superintendent and assistant superintendent to suspend students beyond 10 days, as outlined in RSA 193:13. Dr. Wilson, is there anything else we need to know about this, or can we just?
No, it's perfunctory. We do it every year. It's in case we need to. It doesn't happen very often. But we do need authorization from the board to do that. It's usually through the superintendent.
Okay. Can I have a motion to authorize the superintendent, I can't speak, excuse me. A motion to authorize the superintendent and his designee to continue the suspension of a student for a period in excess of 10 school days as provided for in RSA 193:13B. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to board comments and correspondence. David, you can go first. I'm just gonna, that's gonna be a pattern every time.
Two things. Attended the move up for the fourth graders to the fifth graders. Amazing job. Couldn't be more impressed with going through, what was it, 80 slides? And between Mr. Nola, the assistant principal, and guidance counselor, amazing, funny. Learned a lot about Mr. Nola and her yelping dogs and yes, and her honk noise. But no, I thought it was really informative. So much information that anybody that says otherwise, there's over communication, which was amazing. A lot of stuff that was passed out and learned. So I appreciated that. I know other parents said the same thing. So it was great to walk out of there and feel confident that you have my fourth grader, so bless you. But that you're going to do great things with her, so I appreciate that. And then yesterday, attending the Memorial Day service where music teacher with the students out here was singing, and really great job. Would love to hear them sing more at that, and but they did awesome. It's just professionally done.
I'm all set. Thank you.
I attended a district safety committee meeting, which is always informative. It was. It was. I also was able to attend the second grade community show. Mr. Torelli kindly invited us to walk in the parade. The kids did a great job as per usual. We were positioned right in front of the fire truck. That was great.
Had to keep moving.
Yes. And I appreciate the people clapping and waving to us who had no idea who we were. But it was really just carryover for the kids.
You want a sign next year? Is that what you're saying?
I actually said to Mr. Torelli as I was walking by, I think we need a sign. The kids got to make signs. I think next year we get to make a sign.
Or we get together and make a sign.
That's what I meant. It has to be a group project. It has to be a group project. I can't.
Not homework, group project.
Right.
Got it.
I think
No sign. No sign.
No sign?
No sign.
Okay. I think that's it from me.
Good. I also attended the community presentation, the parade, and the presentation inside, which I thought was very nice. The theme was Hampstead Now. I believe it's Hampstead Now because of Hampstead Then, and a large portion of it was dedicated to a resident, Maury Randall, who was also the town historian for years. There's a book. It was interesting to see that the presentation went through the different phases of the school, actually. We started out years ago with 7 districts and 7 schoolhouses and 20 kids in each schoolhouse. And the different additions that have been put on the school up into the 80s. And Maury Randall was very active in the community, not only a historian, but he also served as a school board member for many years. He was also the clerk of the works for the addition at Central School. Was it the 80s or the 60 edition? 80s. The 80s edition. So it was really a very nice program, especially honoring him. And also a shout out to all the staff who do such a nice job integrating the arts program, the artwork and the music. It's just it's outstanding as usual. I went last year too, and I just can't speak highly enough for our staff over there for doing that. So that was great. And then yesterday, I also attended the memorial service here on the Green, and shout out to Amanda Stark, our music teacher, and all our students who very freely gave of their time and volunteered to be part of a community event for the town. So thank you to them. Our kids are doing a great job supporting community events. That's it.
I too attended the community parade. Real strong takeaway I had from it was just how proud the students were to be there and be involved in it, and to have the parade go through and the other classrooms there supporting them. It was just really nice to see. And then my stepdaughter was singing yesterday in the Memorial Day Parade and the concert, and to see the pride that she had in herself to get up yesterday morning and go out there and be able to sing in front of the town that she takes a lot of pride in, and knowing that she wasn't the only student feeling that way, that the other students felt the same way. That was just really good to see and to be a part of. Thank you again, Ms. Stark and Mr. Torelli, for putting those 2 events together and working on those 2 events. It's really nice to see everybody come together like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Yes, I'm going to start with the personnel report. You have it in front of you. We've been very busy, as you can see. Again, one of I think the most important items that we spend time on is getting the right people in front of the kids. And I think from this list of people here, you're going to see that we got the right people. So I'm just going to start by naming, and you have some information following in the pages. One of the first things you know, we have a phys ed teacher. This is going to be an 80% time for Sarah Arroyo. And she is an experienced PE teacher. She's been working more at the secondary level. She also spent a few years in California, more at the middle school, and then again Londonderry High School. So she's got some great experience in terms of her phys ed content and skills. We talked a lot about how to bring that into the elementary school, and she is really ready to work with Angie and the curriculum, and I think she'll be a nice addition. The next candidate, I'm just going to go through, is Elizabeth Cameron. And she is going to be our new library media specialist at Central School. We're very pleased to have her promoted, so to speak, because she's been the assistant media specialist this year, working with Diane Connors, and she came with some great recommendations. Great energy, very similar, with the same energy level with Diane. If you know Diane Connors from the middle school, she's exemplary in terms of what she does, both at the elementary and the middle school in terms of the library program. She is coming from Boston University. She has a BS in journalism and history, and she currently is taking classes in Plymouth State University towards her librarian specialist certification. She does have a statement of eligibility for us to be able to hire her, and she should be getting her certification by the end of next year. So she will be mentored by Diane, and we're very pleased to have her join us and show her expertise at the elementary level. Next in your packet is Martha Daneski. Martha is from Connecticut. She's driven all the way up here and just loves the atmosphere and the vibe at the school. She's going to be our science teacher in 8th grade. She is also fairly new in terms of her experience, coming from Eastern Connecticut State University, but she does have a BS in Environmental Studies and her master's in Elementary Ed. So she's got the nice combination of skills here to deliver the content that we're looking for. The next person is Elizabeth Kane. Elizabeth has been working as our ESOL teacher. We don't have a lot of students who need English as a second language, but she's been there for us for a couple of years, helping us out with the small number of kids that we have. When she heard about the FLES program, she was very excited to learn more about it. And again, interviewed by Tara Lynn and Beth Metzler, you know, we want to make sure that our consultant understands and feels supportive of the person we're putting in front of the kids, and I think this was very well chosen. She comes from Columbia University in New York. She has a master's in literacy specialist. She also has her ESL certificate, which was in Spanish, elementary ed, and she has a bachelor's from the College of Holy Cross in political science. Again, she's done some nice work with helping us with the ESOL, and so we're hoping that she's going to really learn a lot about FLES, working under Beth's mentorship. The next candidate is Alexia, which she goes by Sia Karamatopoulos, and she is right now graduating. She graduated from Lesley University with a master's in curriculum and instruction, and her bachelor's was done at Keene State in early childhood. Her previous experience, she's been working for 3 years at another school nearby as an elementary grade 1 teacher. In talking with her, she had all of the hallmarks that we were looking for in terms of being able to support some of the work we're doing with UDL, you know, being able to do universal design of learning, being able to do some of the competency-based work, being able to really look at personalized learning. We are very excited with what she had to offer. She is related. She is the niece, I believe, of Mrs. Karamatopoulos, getting married this summer. She will not have the same name when she starts school. I believe she will be Mrs. Whitehead at that point. So we're very excited about having her join us as well.
What position?
Second grade. Yep, I had to think about that for a minute. Second grade, elementary. The next person is Kelly Parker, and she is currently teaching in Salem, second grade teacher. She's also spent many years down in North Carolina as a second grade teacher, and she is going to bring that to us at the elementary school at grade 4. She went to Columbia College in North Carolina. She has a master's in divergent learning and a bachelor's in elementary ed. She was very commendable of what she's learned about Hampstead. She also has national certification, which is very unusual. It's a very high honor to receive the national certification. The rigor is a little different than just, you know, receiving the certification from the state level. It's a much higher standard. So anyway, she was kind of brought to our attention, you know, the part that she was able to do that and to put her application in, which is quite a bit of work to do. So we're glad to have her come, and she still has some of her southern accent with her. There's... Yes.
The science teacher is at 7th grade for the middle school.
Did I say?
8th.
I did. I may have said that. Yeah, wait a minute. You're right, 7th, I'm sorry. You know why? Because she taught in 8th. I picked up the wrong one.
We didn't want Ms. Griffin to be...
No, thank you very much. And we have one more person who didn't make it on the list because her certification is still pending. She just graduated. We're getting ready to get her on board to bring her in June to the next meeting. But we couldn't quite get her certification. She just graduated, and it takes a while for them to process at the Department of Ed. Otherwise, we would have had them all on here. But we were very pleased with the group and the pool that we received this year, and thank you to everybody who was part of the interview process. Very busy. So that, if you want to take it separately, we could do that.
Sure. Can I have a motion to accept the personnel report?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As well, in terms of my report, a couple of things. I attended a special meeting at Pinkerton Academy, which you probably have gotten some information about because it was a coming of preview attractions here. They are starting a very significant capital campaign. And I did put something in your packet, which is from their website. I think I have more information I can share separately. I didn't have it ready for tonight. But the capital campaign is really built on two segments. One, facilities and athletics, and two, academics. And they're still fleshing some of that academics piece out. But they're very excited about some of their donors who have already committed $1 million. They're looking to raise $2 million. They've already done, as you can see, some of the athletic fields here. Again, that was all raised with without taxpayer funding. And so that information around their capital campaign and what they're trying to do, they're going to have more detail, but they wanted to get the word out there that this is going on, and if anyone wants to donate, they are very much interested in talking to you. Had you heard about it? Okay, good. Thank you. A question I had as well, whether or not you wanted to, I know we brought this question to you once before. I am not here on the 25th. If you wish to have a meeting, I didn't know if that's something you wanted to talk about on June 25th. That's the last week of June, and typically, if there's not a lot of business, you don't usually have that meeting. So I just wanted you to be aware that Dr. Metzler would be available if that's what you required. We have a lot of our hiring done, so that's great. But if you wanted to, just make sure that you keep that date in mind. And I'm sure we'll get the agenda. We'll work on that if there's something that you need for that date. The last thing was, you had asked, or someone had asked about whether or not we meet the requirements for hours versus days. We do meet the requirements under the hours. If our calendar is looked at through the hours, it's 990 hours that has to be complied with for for middle school, and it's 945 hours for elementary. We meet both at our schedules. I've looked at it in detail. There are certain things that are counted, there are certain things that are not counted. We're doing fine in terms of meeting those requirements. I know that there was some talk about whether or not, since our students are going to school on the 17th in June and then half a day on the 18th, doesn't make sense to have them go that week. So I wanted you to know that if there's any options that you wanted to kind of consider, we do meet the hour requirements by if they were supposed to have a meeting, a last day of school on the 14th, they would have met the hours requirement. So I wanted to bring that to your attention so that you had that data. And other than that,
Do you want to talk to that, Dr.?
I think, we looked at, we use our blizzard bags, obviously, to take care of some snow days. And then we looked at the hourly piece. So we wanted you to have that information in the event that you'd like the last day of school to be June 14th. We typically call them, we don't like the orphan days, so we have like a day and a half, that Monday and Tuesday. So it is something for the board to talk about. It was brought to my attention because we had made some adjustments in the other district that we didn't even have the discussion here. So you can have the discussion now, or we could have it on June 11th.
I don't know if we should have it on June 11th.
Well, I know we're just kind of just throwing this at you now, but,
Right.
so we asked them to do all the work to make sure that we had the hours met in the event that you thought coming back. So you'd say, okay, what does staff do? We would look at those as professional days, not necessarily professional development days, but those are the days when you're, wrapping up your room, putting in all your grades, closing up for the summer, kind of getting ready for the beginning of next year. So, I'd leave that up to the principals to do that with their staff, but if that's something that you'd want to entertain, we certainly, the research has been done and you have met the hours. So that's not, that issue's all set.
Okay, we can talk about it. I had a little, briefly, you let me know that we were going to talk about it. So I feel like it's a little late to back it off till the 14th. This is my parent perspective. I know how scheduled and how structured summer care and summer arrangements have to be. So me personally, I would want to just keep it on the 18th. I know that 6th grade, I think, has a field trip on the 14th. So I only know that because I have a 6th grader, but which I would think would make it a little difficult to, I think having that last day piece for them is important to kind of wrap up everything. That's I welcome everyone's comments here. We got to talk about it.
My feedback is keep the 17th and don't have a half day on the 18th then. But
So just go on Monday?
yeah, I know for parents, a lot of parents doing half days is really hard. So you got to try to figure out that who's going to be home, that kind of thing. But, that's just my first impulse to say.
I say we keep it the same.
Keep it as the 18th as half?
Yeah, keep it the way it is. It's too late. And next year, if we need to change it by a certain date, like when are they planning field trips? What's a good time to make that decision?
April. So once you know there's not going to be any more snow and you're pretty sure you're not going to be adding any more days.
Okay.
That particular piece, I checked to make sure that we weren't taking something away on the 17th or 18th. I don't think there was anything necessarily planned. So that wasn't an issue, but it could be in any given year if something's planned the last day. The 8th grade won't be there, so it's just not 6 and 7 and obviously elementary school. So.
Right. Because 8th grade graduates the 14th.
So we keep it just the same way. As a parent, we've already started making plans on the 18th, the half day. We've got things lined up. I know speaking for a lot of the parents in town, I know the kids are going to regret if they don't get mad at me if they hear me saying this, but it's probably for the best at this point in time, at this juncture, just to keep it the way it is.
We didn't have a strong recommendation either way.
Yeah.
It was just that you didn't have the opportunity to explore this option, that's all, and so we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we did that.
I think it would be, I think this year it's a little late. I think it'd be great to explore it next year, whenever we can get to that point that we know we're pretty safe, knock on wood, for snow days and everything. I certainly would support looking at it.
Yeah, when it's one day, and we call it that orphan day, then but you start getting into 2 or 3 days, it's,
Right.
it's a lot more time. And you're right,
Yeah.
the planning for parents, it gets tricky.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So,
One more, one more item?
I have a couple more too when you're done. Go ahead.
I was going to have Dillard talk about kindergarten enrollment.
Okay, but while we're on staffing,
Okay.
I'm going to wrap up
Oh,
the
yes.
staffing piece.
Yes,
Okay,
okay,
so,
sorry, yes.
Your last meeting, you approved some stipend positions, so those letters of interest are coming in, and we're really excited about the team we're going to be able to put together. You remember you talked about curriculum, professional development, and mentoring. So it's something that I think for climate and culture, to have our teachers very much involved in the trenches with that work, it's with the support of staff. So that closes on Friday, and so we'll be notifying. There's not an interview process that goes with that. It's just to express their letters of interest. We put the team together. We'll let them know. We'll let them know the candidates that were unsuccessful. And so we should have that. I can get that to you. We should have that information well in advance of your next meeting. So you don't have to wait all the way to your next meeting. So we'll be able to wrap that up pretty quick. The second piece was your executive director. That position, that posting has closed. And so I spoke with Caitlin today. We'll be putting together an interviewing team. Well, Caitlin will be putting together an interviewing team. We'll get that started. Our hope is to have a candidate for you at your next meeting. So if the screening committee can get it down to 3 finalists, I'll have an opportunity to meet with them on the 10th. And then with Caitlin, the two of us we'll agree on a candidate, and we'll have that candidate for you on June 11th. So the timing is the timing. So we didn't have 100 applicants, but we do feel like we have a pretty qualified, we have a qualified pool of candidates to interview and select from. So we're in good shape. So that was those two pieces. So I don't know if you had any questions about either one of those. If not, I'll let Dillard get into his kindergarten conversation. Good? Thank you.
Thank you.
I've done an awful lot of looking at the numbers and in the enrollments and made a bazillion phone calls and checked in with a lot of families. I talked to Dr. Wilson and Dr. Metzler, as well as Dr. Cheney, all these brilliant people I work with an idea that I think will work, and I've met with some of the teachers. I would like to reassign Kristen Karamatopoulos to teach kindergarten this fall, which means we'll end up with 4 teachers in first grade. I did a deep analysis of all the numbers. It'll mean we'll end up having a class size of 19 or 20 based upon the names that I know as of today. And then this would also allow us to accommodate the very large number of families that are enrolling in kindergarten and continue to call me. Based on these numbers today, we'd be looking at kindergarten, full-day kindergarten groups of around 16 or 17, which means I don't need to go to near that 20 number that you were very gracious to agree to at the previous board meeting. This would mean that we would just simply have a 1-year plan of an additional kindergarten classroom to deal with this surge of enrollment for this fall kindergarten. That'll maintain the quality we expect as far as class size and the teaching staff that we do have, and also allow us to live with the space limits that we do have. So I just wanted to bring it here this evening so I could move forward with it. There's a lot of parents out there calling me saying what's going on.
I just basically wanted to inform you that, things changed a little bit. This is a very fluid, kind of dynamic situation in terms of registrations. So thought about it in a different way and think this is a good solution going forward.
Mrs. Karamatopoulos has been asking me for a couple of years, I want to go teach kindergarten. So it was an opportunity for a master teacher to work with our kindergarten team, and we've got a solid first grade team as well. So
how many full-day classes?
we'd end up with 4 full-day classrooms. We would still maintain 1 classroom that I have both an AM and a PM option.
Okay, thank you.
And if this continues, then you'll have to flex the teacher to first grade next year.
My assumption is that Mrs. Karamatopoulos will be teaching kindergarten for this year only, and then we can bring her back to first grade the following year. But that's an assumption based upon it's a large cohort of kids to be starting. I've never seen a cohort start this large in a while. And we're also fortunate to have a relatively small cohort that's moving from K into first grade. So keep your fingers crossed.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. So just approve the consent agenda? That'd be great.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. Unless anyone has any other business, old business, I don't believe we have anything for non-public. So, anyone have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn, second? Second. I think Jim just said second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Goodness.